I don't either.
All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this presentation. This presentation is going to be reviewed by both our in-person audience and for those folks live via Zoom. My name's Terry Weber. I'm the Elder Care Coordinator here at UK. Lisa Collins is going to be manning our Zoom operations and is the Marketing and Communications Specialist for the Work Life Office. Today, we are pleased to welcome Tracy Bryan. She's a Master Best Friends Trainer at Bridgepointe at Ashgrove. Tracy is going to discuss the Best Friends approach to dementia care. But just a little FYI for our Zoom audiences. If you have any questions during the presentation, just click on the chat icon and type your question into the box in your control panel. Tracy will answer as many questions as she has time for at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, here and there. Hi. So I'm going to talk about this fabulous approach to dementia care. I'll give you a little history on the approach, and then we'll get into it a little bit more. So the Best Friends approach was started, 34 years ago by Virginia Bell. Virginia Bell's best friend, Rebecca Riley, who we'll meet in just a second, was diagnosed at a very early age with dementia. And that really made Virginia go back at 60 to get her master's degree in social work. And when she was doing that, she was working for Dr. Marksbury, and they had a support group for folks with dementia, their loved ones. And so Virginia says, being the peon at the time, she had to work with the folks with dementia, before we knew anything, right? So she's sitting in there with them, and she discovers that she actually likes folks with dementia a lot better than she likes folks without dementia. So that started, but what happened was at the end of this, all these caregivers came out and they were like, gosh, that was awesome. Just an hour break. It was great. And the folks with dementia were stimulated with all these activities. So Virginia had this fantastic idea that she would open a day center for people with dementia, a dementia-specific day center. Well, Dr. Marksbury said, there's no way that you're going to be able to have a day center with people with dementia and it not be clinical with volunteers. You can't do that, you know? Well, 34 years later, we're getting ready to celebrate the anniversary. But he ended up eating his words. It ended up being fantastic. So here is Rebecca. Let me show you here. There's Virginia, and there's Rebecca. My guess, Virginia's 95, and she still comes to the day center probably 3 times a week and drives all the way out there and volunteers. So they went to college together, and Rebecca, there's a little bit about her life story, but I have to skip through some of this stuff just for sake of time. I want to make sure you all have time for questions. Rebecca was a nurse, and she was an educator. She received her master's of education. She taught nursing. So when she started to see some little things, little forgetfulness things, she feared the worst. Just being a nurse and knowing, so at 59, she started having her trouble, and a medical evaluation did confirm a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And that's pretty early. So Rebecca's diary, these are some things that were in Rebecca's diary. Depression. I can't say what I want. Afraid. I can't express my thoughts in words, thus I remain silent. I feel that people turn me off since I cannot express myself any longer. This is a real excerpt from her diary. I dislike social workers, nurses, and friends who do not treat me as a real person. And in a nutshell, just a side note, that's what this approach is. It's treating them like a real person, because they are. They're a person first before the disease. And to know them well, you have to walk a mile in their shoes. So getting a little into dementia. Now, there's all different types of dementia. The basic dementia means away from mind. That's what it means. Dementia is a symptom of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is a disease that causes dementia. Parkinson's is a disease that can cause dementia. That dementia is just a symptom, okay? And there are reversible dementias and there are irreversible dementias. And there are actually over 250 types of dementia. It's crazy. And no cure. It's fun. So, feelings caused by dementia: loss, isolation, loneliness, fear, paranoia, um, angry, especially at those beginning stages. You don't know what's going on, but you know something's going on and it's not pretty. So, with the best friends approach, this is not best friends. This is best friends. So, all of these feelings can change with this approach if you use this. Paranoia can turn into trust. I always tell a story of Buddy. He lived at Bridgepointe, good old Buddy, and we were having this going away party for someone, and he thought it was actually during March, and everyone was wearing blue, so we thought it was a UK party. So that's kind of what we went with, right? So we were sitting there, and he had moments of clarity quite often. So he sometimes he was with us and sometimes he wasn't. So he was sitting there and he had been having some aggression and sexual behaviors, exhibiting the disease was coming out that way. And he, after I built trust, I sat with him. He's, I don't know you. I talked about his daughter Ruth. I talked about his dog. I talked about Notre Dame football. And he's like, this girl must know me a little bit, right? So I built trust with him. He leaned in and he said, sometimes I don't know where the heck I am. He said, so if I do something inappropriate, will you please stop me? And I looked at him and I said, deal. But if I do something inappropriate, you got to stop me too. And he laughed and thought that was funny. But that's how this approach can build trust, by using that person's life story. That's what it's about. So, what I just said, best friends know each other's life story, become their memory. Don't say, what's your daughter's name? Instead, know their life story. How's Ruth doing? That way, you save face. You don't have to have them come up with, of course, he should know his daughter's name. And that can cause anger, aggression, anything, right? Be sensitive to their traditions. We have a lady at Best Friends that comes on Wednesdays, and she's come for about 5 years now. And every time she walks in, she said, well, it's my birthday today. And so we have a birthday party every Wednesday for Marlene. We have a little pin that says birthday girl. We have a cake. Every Wednesday, there's a birthday party for Marlene. And she's had a birthday for 5 years. So I love it. Every Wednesday. I think I'm going to try to start doing that too. I don't think that's a bad idea. You get cake, right? Respect their moods. We all have a bad day, right? So do they. Tie activities into your best friend's life story. We had this man, Don. He was actually Buddy's friend. I was sitting with Don and Buddy. So they're kind of, and we had this grant from the Tailored Activities Program, and we had, he was a plumber. He owned his own plumbing business for years and years and years. So we had this top notch high dollar kit with all these plumbing equipment, these pipes that he could screw in, something to tailor into his life story, because that's what this approach is all about, right? Life story. So we come rolling that thing in. We're so excited. I mean, I wanted to get it on camera because we've been preparing. We know he's going to love it. Well, he looked at us and he said, girls, I appreciate it. He said, but I've been doing this crap my whole life and I'm done with it. So 99% of the time it works though, okay? But not with Dawn. And when another Dawn and Buddy story that was funny, I told you the moments of clarity with Buddy, right? So I'm walking through memory care and they're both standing there and they look like they're just up to something. And I know, and I always tease them. I'm like, you guys are up to something. I said, what are y'all doing? And Buddy said, well, if we knew, we wouldn't be here right now. So I said, you got me there, bud. So you never know. You never know what they know. All right. Like, I'll give an example too of one time. Well, I'll get to that. Best friends do things together. So enjoy activities, initiate them, encourage them to do things. And remember to celebrate Marlene's birthday every Wednesday. Listen carefully and fill in the blanks when appropriate. don't step on their toes. I'm really good at doing that with all my friends. I like to finish their sentences for them anyway. But don't do that, because it takes a lot longer for someone with dementia to understand what you're saying to them and to get out an answer if they can get one out at all. So by knowing the life story, you can fill in the blanks, right? So we had a man, Ray, and we had a group of students coming through, and they were Ray, oh, people person. He loved it, and they were all, I think it was a sorority, so he was really happy that day, right? So he walks up to him and, hey, everybody, I'm Ray, blah blah blah, and they said, well, where are you from, Ray? And I just saw the look of like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where I grew up on his face. But I gave him a little time. And I said, can you believe he's an Oklahoma Sooner? Does anybody like Oklahoma Sooners anymore? And he's like, Oklahoma. So I saved his face. You know what I mean? I saved his face because I could tell he couldn't pull that out. He just couldn't pull it out yet. So, oh, mic drop. That was not a purposeful mic drop, by the way. I'm not done yet. Encourage them to participate. Ask them for an opinion. Expect an honest answer, though, when you ask them for that opinion. Give compliments often, like I said. That's building self-esteem. Humor is the key with this disease. There was a man, Bob, that came into Best Friends. Every time he came in, every day, I would be like, oh my God, don't let him in here, and hold the door and joke with them. I treat all of them just like I treat anyone in my family. They're the same. They enjoy humor. Make fun of yourself. Sue comes up to me every day. What day is it? Can you tell me what day it is, please? What day is it? And I always look at her and I'm like, why do you have to ask me these hard questions, Sue? I can't remember this stuff. I think it's Tuesday. So I always make fun of myself around them. Don't talk down to your friend. Help them save face. Like I was talking about earlier with Ray. Learning is a two-way street. Build a trusting relationship and show affection often. When is it okay to touch their shoulder, put your arm around them? Some of our folks are a little jumpy, but Virginia Bell always says err on the side of way too much affection. So you never know. So the life story is super important. It improves communication, first of all, with our people. The biggest thing that it does, especially when you implement this approach into a facility, per se, it helps with personal care. You retain your staff because they're having an easier time getting someone in the bathtub, right? It's a beautiful thing when you see it working, and it gets in touch with their distant memories. You have no idea short-term memories are the first to go. So I always say, your memories, the hippocampus, right back here. Here's your hippocampus. Looks like a little cinnamon roll. The yummy good part of the cinnamon roll are the short-term memories, what you had for lunch and stuff. The hard crust on the cinnamon roll are your long-term memories, where you grew up, your mom and dad. That's why they revert back to, my mom's waiting for me. I've got to go cook. All right. Because the cells shrink and die. That's the whole disease process in a very nutshell. But so it opens up. So that's why those short-term memories go first, because they're in the middle. Side note. That's a side note. So it's very important to know this is all good. You need to know where they grew up. I tell all the staff, do not ever go into someone's room to render care unless you can tell me where they grew up. You need to know that. You need to know their honors traditions. You need to know their religion, if they have any. You need to know their hobbies. What do they like to do? Definitely kids' names, parents' names. And, you don't have to correct them if they say, I don't have a daughter named Ruth. Oh, all right. I must have mistaken you for someone else, never correct. So what we do is we have life story binders. Everybody who comes into Bridgepointe or Best Friends or anywhere, they have to give us a life story. It's more important than the financial contracts. It's more important than their medication list. To me, a nurse probably wouldn't agree with that one. But, and it's so important. And we make sure all of our staff is very, very knowledgeable. So at best friends, each person with dementia is assigned a best friend. That best friend for that day, they're all volunteers. So if anybody wants to volunteer, it's actually the most fun you'll ever have. Our volunteers come like one day a week, and they'll be assigned with a friend. And so most of them know everybody now, but if it's a new person, then they are to go and read their life story before they sit with them so they can better have more fun and know what to talk about. So Alzheimer's changes communication. Finding words is very difficult. Finding the right word is even more difficult. It's, like your brain is a file cabinet. So there's a file in there for every word that means house. There's a file in there that every word that means hot. So if someone says their coffee is spicy, they maybe just pulled out the wrong word from that file. Okay. So it's our job to figure out what that means. Obviously, we don't think someone put cayenne pepper in their coffee. It's so they're trying to say that word. They will curse often. It's always the ones who never cursed a day in their life that are now sailors. So Virginia says that's because it's been suppressed harder than anyone else. And they just, here you go, filter gone. But it's when they can't curse anymore that is sad. You kind of miss it once they lose that, all the verbal. Easily lose train of thought. Me too. It's really cool to see someone revert back to their native language, though. We have a lady here she'll curse you out in German. So she is funny, Marie. All right, so we all know the ways of communicating, verbal and nonverbal. Nonverbal is super important because of the language part of this disease. Watch them. You can figure stuff out. If you're sitting in a group and they're engaged, and I mean 5 minutes worth of engagement, because they're not going to be engaged more than 20 usually. So engaged and maybe tossing a ball, and then somebody keeps standing up often. Well, they probably need to use the restroom, so you just read different little things. So, and watch your speed of words and tone. Listen carefully. They often make sense. Even if it's a word salad and jumble, they may say bathroom in between the jumbleds. So, you have to listen. Do take the blame. This is very important. One wants to be called a thief. I've been called, you stole my purse. You know what? I probably did misplace it. Let's go look for it somewhere, instead of saying, no, I didn't. I mean, arguing with someone with dementia is never the right thing to do. And that's so hard for a family member. Okay. I get that. It's very easy for a professional who's trained in this approach. But I have so many people in my support group, and they're like, oh, I'm doing it all wrong. Like, yeah, well, everybody raise your hand if you're doing it all wrong too, because if you don't know, you don't know. And it's really hard when it's your dad or your husband. And, so take the blame. I always say rationalizing with someone with dementia is like asking someone with a broken leg to get up and run a marathon. It can't happen. So if Sue says, I already took my shower. Well, we know Sue didn't take her shower, but don't argue. Yes, you did, so never argue, because it's really pointless. It's pointless is really why. Watch their body language, like we were talking about, stepping up and having to use the restroom. Don't give orders or make demands. I never tell someone with dementia no. I just redirect. Well, obviously, if someone's like, I need to walk to Pikeville right now, instead of being like, no, I would say, well, we can take my car, but it's getting an oil change right now. So if you give me 10 minutes, I'll ride with you. And then we go get ice cream, and that short-term memory is gone. So you kind of tell little fibs, little white lies, but it's more like compassionate deception is what they call. Do not treat anyone like a child. I know, being in Kentucky, a lot of baby honey sweeties are going to be thrown around. I get it. It's a term of endearment. But try to use it's kind of neat. The best friends approach is more of use their first name, which is kind of hard because most people want to be respectful and a Mr. Applegate, so things like that. But I don't call my best friend Mrs. Ramirez. So I call her Andrea. So that's kind of why, So often we talk in front of the people as if they're not right there because we forget. We think because they have dementia, they don't know what's going on anyway. So it doesn't even matter, or they'll just forget it, right? But they'll have a feeling that somebody's talking about them. Doctors are really good about this too, about not doing that. It's hard, Um, there was training a facility in Bowling Green, and there was a table of ladies. They were all eating lunch. Phyllis, Vera, there was a bunch of them around the table, and there was an aide sitting with them doing what she was supposed to do. And the nurse's station was over there, and the nurse says, hey, Melissa, did you get Phyllis's weight? And Melissa said, yeah, it was 126. So they were just doing a task. They have to know each other's weights. So I was right there, and I kind of pulled up, and I said, hey, quick question. How would you like your weight shouted across Applebee's? Because that's just what happened. So, you just have to watch. Not that they were at fault. They didn't intentionally do anything, but it's just recognizing these things. Use the person's preferred name. Weave the life story facts throughout the conversation that you're having with them. So I know people like to talk. So let's say we're talking about a baby shower that we had, and two of the aides are talking, or two of the volunteers at Best Friends are talking. Well, why don't you say, Sue, when you had Julie, golly, I bet you had a wonderful baby shower. Oh, yeah. So I was talking to my friend, but I was involving my friend with dementia too. So this is the lessons in behaviors. We used to call them challenging behaviors, but we don't anymore. Virginia wants to change the language to reactive behaviors because they are just reacting to something with their disease. So what we perceive to be a behavior, well, let me back up. Virginia says we must really love challenging reactive behaviors because we cause about 90% of them ourselves. And then we spend about 90% of the time trying to fix it, right? So, but we have to be a detective. We have to know these behaviors don't just occur. There are triggers that there are triggers. So we really need to see and get behind why they're acting a certain way. So it can be health, environment, task, communication, or perception of reality problems. So I'm going to get into each of those real quick. So health problems. This is probably the main reason, because I know when I don't feel good, I may not be the nicest person in the world. And they can't tell you that they don't feel good a lot of times. They can't tell you that their back is absolutely killing them. You have to watch for that. You have to look and know. Dehydration is one of the big causes. But, one of the biggest things are urinary tract infections. So if dementia is kind of, Alzheimer's, it's a decline, but it's typically gradual depending, on the type of dementia. But Alzheimer's is, so if someone is on their normal pattern and then one day they're just going off, you got to watch. You can tell when someone's off. The first thing we would do is test their urine and see. And most of the time, it's usually a UTI. And so that's easy. That's an easy fix. We can give them an antibiotic and be fine, right? But other things are harder to see. So environment, these are huge. Is the space too big? Is it too small? Is it freezing cold in the room? Is it burning up? Are they hot? Have they layered? That's very typical, to layer all their clothes, and they're maybe burning up. The biggest, though, I think, is the noise, the white noise in the background, a dishwasher running when they're trying to eat. Lady that was having trouble feeding herself, and you wouldn't believe it, but the reason she was having trouble feeding herself was because the dishwasher was running at the same time. It is so weird how these little things work. So when you can't feed yourself, you can't live at Bridgepointe anymore. So she would have had to go to a skilled nursing environment because of this, okay? But because we were a detective and we looked at all these little things, she's probably gained 10 pounds. She's definitely feeding herself. But it was just the fact that the dishwasher was running, that she couldn't do that and figure this out all at the same time. So these are really important. Task related. Let's see, a good example. Bart was a physicist, genius, right? So I thought I would get a physics book and we'd look at vectors and all this stuff I have no idea about, right? Well, he took that book and he was trying to explain to me what a vector was, and it wasn't coming. And Bart took that book, frisbeed it across the hall. So I gave him a task that was a little bit too hard for him at that moment. So know what they're capable of. Talking too fast, kind of like I'm doing now. Difficulty understanding. Those are communication problems. You don't need to talk to someone with dementia like that, but slower is usually better. So then there's perception of reality problems. There's delusions and hallucinations. So the difference is fairly easy. A delusion is something that actually could happen, right? The man came into my room, took a gun out of my purse, and went out the back window. Did it happen to Betty in room 301? Probably not, right? But could it have happened? Sure. A man could have walked in, grabbed a gun out of a purse, and left out a window. Hallucination, the pink elephant came in with a unicorn hat on and ate my cupcakes and went out the window. So there's the difference. But the biggest thing is it a problem? If the little kids in the wall are coming out and singing Christmas carols and making Lucy really happy, then who cares? Let them sing, right? But if the little kids are coming out of the wall and scaring her, then we need to talk about medication or something about it. So, and whose problem is it? Are we just embarrassed because, this? So, ways to make a difference, get with the team. It could be a second face that really makes all the difference in the world. I could look like someone they went to high school with that they didn't like, but Lisa can come in and maybe get them to get in the shower. So, try different approaches, whatever works best. Use the life story to look for causes. So I had a man, Tom, he was not using the restroom in his toilet at all. He wasn't at all. So he would go to any window and urinate at the window. So due to infection control issues, we weren't allowed to have this happen. So we went back and I said, all right, well, let's think about this. Why is he doing it? Well, Tom was a farmer. And if you know anything about farming, you definitely aren't going to come in to go to the bathroom, right? So he was going outside to use the restroom at the window. So how do we fix this? So Best Friends thinks outside of the box. So instead of giving him medication to make him not urinate as often, we went to Kirkland's and bought 2 fake trees, put them behind his toilet, and put red duct tape around the toilet seat. And he never had the problem again. So, you can fix things like this if you just know what to do. And just think, things you think won't work, I promise it is so weird. You can come up with the craziest ideas. We have one lady would not wear Depends to save her life. No, but we looked her life story. She loved to be the center of attention. So we're a production crew and we need to shoot a commercial for Depends, and we'd like her to be our spokesperson if she would be interested. She hadn't taken them off since, and she will remember. She goes around to everybody. Well, I'm in a commercial, so. So everybody was like, what? Oh, we had our HR manager filming her, acting like he was filming her. So, and it worked. We needed it. We needed her to do that. And it actually made her feel good in the process, too. It gave her something to look forward to. Pitfalls to avoid. Couple of the over medication is definitely my biggest. You don't need to medicate if you do it right. Everybody needs to feel comfortable in their own skin. Absolutely. There are things to take the edge off that a lot of our folks need and benefit from 100%. Get them to sleep. That's perfect. But try every social intervention first before you medicate. Because that's easy for us, right? It's easy. So I had a lady, Sue. I tell this story. I walked up, and this was I can't remember what facility this was. And because I'll go around sometimes and help different ones out. And there was an aide standing over her and another aide standing over her. And Sue, all of 60 pounds, is sitting in the chair shaking like a leaf. And I'm like, well, what is wrong with her? Well, one of the aides has a thermometer stuck in her ear. The other aide has a blood pressure cuff on her arm. Sue doesn't know where she is or who these two doctors are and what are they doing. This is sticking in my ear and this is squeezing my arm. And so Sue hits him, right? Hits him off because she's scared to death. So what happens when this occurs is Sue now gets labeled as a hitter and aggressive. So when Sue needs to transition to a nursing skilled facility, no one's going to take her because she's labeled aggressive, all because someone walked up with the wrong approach. And that's what gets me anything. The labels, they're not like that. So I just sat down with her and I talked about Harlan and moonshine and her son Steve and her cat, and she was fine. She was calm, but it was just really, it was sad. A lot of times these people with behaviors, so let's say they do hit another resident or whoever, because were approached incorrectly by the staff, they get sent out to these, the Ridge or, places like that, psych wards where they're kind of doped up and to the point where they can't walk anymore. And then they have to go to a skilled nursing facility too. So we have had a couple really success stories from the Ridge too, though, that I may want to say. So sometimes people do need to take a little drug holiday. But if we've done everything else, that's what we do first, everything else. Oh, and don't take anything personally because you will not last in dementia care. Lois, one time, she just hated social workers. She was a nurse, hated social workers. Every time and her thing was, remember, repeating the same things, familiar phrases, because her phrase every time I walked in was, "What do you do?" So I'm a social worker. Oh gosh, okay. Next day, what do you do? I'm a social worker. Oh my gosh. I was like, I'm going to get her to like me, a social worker. So then I tried the next day. What do you do? I'm a teacher. Oh, I love teachers. They're fantastic. So, hey, you do what you got to do, right? Lois and I were tight after that. I never was a social worker again. Takeaways from this, most behaviors do have a solution, and not all folks with dementia are combative, difficult, or angry. Those are just the ones we hear about, we all have our limits. Gather information before you make a judgment. And this motley crew at the beginning of the slideshow, they're actually the Bassoon Brothers of the Oregon Philharmonic. So don't judge. And then a little quick run through on some activities, because activities are very important, and then I'll take questions so I'm just going to I'm going to do this in a nutshell. Everything can be an activity. Looking out the window, holding someone's hand, sitting next to someone is an activity for someone with dementia. There are all different types of people. Some people are going to participate and some people are not. I'll tell you what none of them are going to do is initiate it. So that's why it's important for us to do it. That's why it's so hard for folks at home to do this, because I don't know how many people have rec therapy degrees. It's hard. It's hard to do these things. You're working, you're busy. So that's why the day center is so important. Structured, unstructured. Structured are good. Unstructured is like sitting next to someone and starting to sing "You're My Sunshine" right before lunch. I'm going to show this one. And the main takeaway from activities, it's not about the process. It's not about the end result. It's about the process. So you can plant flowers upside down and I don't care, as long as you have fun digging in the dirt. This is my favorite. Okay, so this lady, real quick. No, she can't play Scrabble. Why would you take Scrabble out and have her play? She hasn't said a word in probably 2 years. Okay. So they're like, well, we'll just put the tiles out and she can sit with us and not participate, but in her own way participate. Well, they walked away. This person walked away and came back. She had spelled out her grandkids' names with the tiles. That's awesome, right? So things that you won't work, sometimes they shock you. And they'll remember things you wish they wouldn't. No, sometimes. So I love this quote, and then we'll be done. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me and be my friend. So, questions? Oh, I want to touch too on the Best Friends Day Center is open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. You can drop them off whenever. And a full day is $75. We're now offering half days on Mondays and Fridays for $40. There is also, because some folks cannot, let's say dementia doesn't discriminate. economic class. So some people may not be able to afford this. We do have a fund, the Virginia Bell Fund, and folks can qualify for that. All you have to do is apply. I promise it's not easy. It's not hard to get a yes on that. So that's important to know. And I have brochures and any other information. This day center is so underused, it's ridiculous. People, when I talk, they're like, a lot of people haven't heard about this. And I'm like, how? It's like it's so the honeypot for folks, that can get help. So need help. Questions? Are there any on there? Yeah. Yes. If you go to, let's see, Bridgepointe, let me make sure it's on here. Well, I know we have a Facebook page. The Best Friends, yeah. I just can't.
I always find them in the Christian care community.
That's what it is, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to www.bridgepointassistedcare.com, and that'll maybe skip that first step for you. And then you can go to Day Center. Okay.
Do you have suggestions for the using the best friends approach with needing to transition someone from independent living into an assisted living?
That is a very good question. So it's a tough one too, because it's very hard to do, because each step is taking away a little bit more from that person. We're not doing anything maliciously, but in their head, that's what's going on. So I would say listening to their concerns about it and being upfront and honest and listening to them and valuing their opinion and telling them things like, this is for your own safety. Do a little compassionate deception maybe. And not saying, well, you need a lot of help, Mom. Skip all that. This is a nicer, newer place. That's kind of how I would do that. It's not easy. Mm-hmm.
So my mother is in a nursing home in another state and is developing dementia. Any ideas about how to make the best use of our phone interaction?
Okay, they can talk on the phone. I would definitely tell what's going on in your life and things like you would just catch up, and then just start talking about things in their past, instead of saying, Mom, how was lunch today? Well, at the nursing, tell me about, I guarantee they can recall some things from the past. So tell me, was your dad strict on you, or did you have flowers on your front porch in Harlan? Just bring up like past, like life story stuff from a long time ago, and just talk about those stories. Talk about their traditions, their, golly, I wish I could be like you and be president of the Rotary Club, and just bring up past achievements. That would help, I think. Yeah.
Any secrets to helping a person with dementia function with their phone, with their mobile phone?
It's hard because it's all about the steps. All right. We think brushing our teeth is easy. Brushing teeth to someone with dementia, there's over 110 steps to brushing your teeth. From walking into the bathroom, to turning on the water, to picking up the tube, twisting it's amazing how many steps there are. So that is the problem with it. It's the steps. Opening the phone, or knowing when to click on this, typing in, remembering numbers. So it gets a little confusing, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the steps. Yeah.
I tried it with my dad, and he had Alexa, and so I thought he would enjoy listening to music. He loves the jazz stations. So I would say, hey, Dad, you got an Alexa. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Jazz 24 for me. Or just play Jazz 24. Well, he would have a conversation with me. Hi, good morning, Alexa. Could you please play? And, Alexa's like, not understanding all these.
Right.
It's a command, but he couldn't do that. You know, that wasn't his personality to ever give a command to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I thought, okay, I'm gonna write it down. All you have to do is just Alexa, play Jazz 24. Couldn't do it. So, darn.
I know.
We had to get his caregiver to play, you know, Alexa for music for him. But we thought, oh, this is great. He doesn't have to worry about gadgets or anything. But he couldn't still ask, just get a radio station. Yeah, darn. But we tried.
I know.
So his caregiver had to do it for him.
And that's
That's
trying. That's thinking outside of the box. Trying things like you don't know how to work. You don't know. I mean, you may give someone a phone with dementia and they'll start playing Words with Friends, and you're like, "How did that happen?" You know. So you don't know. Don't count them out. That's for sure. Anything else? Please know that there's a huge difference in normal aging and memory loss versus a disease. So don't get worried when you go home. My mom had to quit watching Still Alice in the middle of it. She's like, I can't do that. I couldn't give my address. You know, you start worrying and thinking, there's normal aging versus a disease. Yeah.
Since people lose their short-term memory, is it good to set up daily routines or tasks, chores, exercises, every day?
Yes. Structured activity is it is the crux of the Best Friends Day Center. They have a very strict routine. So anything to throw that balance off, you wouldn't think that they know that ice cream comes after exercise, but that's one thing you won't forget is that ice cream comes after exercise. So a structured routine is so important. Every day, try to do the same exact thing. Very good.
hard.
Yes.
We don't like, sometimes you have to have a break in our lives to have that, added spark. But that's what keeps them going is the repetitiveness. And it's like, again. But
We were just having this conversation. Our memory care coordinator and our aides, they get really, because we do theme weeks. So 1 week will be Elvis week during his birthday. 1 week, Christmas, we have a lot of Christmas weeks, but Easter, different themes. And we do the same activity Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at Best Friends. Well, as staff get really burnt out on it, but it's so beneficial for our loved ones. I was like, it's really not about them. It's about our buddies. So we were just saying it's so important, but it can be boring for us. Important though.
Best Friends, unique to Kentucky.
The approach is not. The day center is the only Best Friends adult day center in the world is in Brandon Crossing. Yep. So that's pretty cool.
So what's, I understand the technique then it's not, so my sister is in California.
Mm-hmm.
And so who would I call in California to say, do you have any chapters or?
That's a great question, because I was just telling them before, there are master trainers, Best Friend master trainers. And in order to be a master trainer, you have to get master trained, right? Okay. And so all across the country, there are different facilities that utilize this approach. They just can't, if they have a day center, they just can't call it the Best Friends Adult Day Center. They can call it California Dementia Day Center, but they can use the approach. And there are a lot of other approaches out there that are similar to this too. So, but yeah, a lot of places all over the country come to this training so they can take this approach back to their facility because it's so awesome.
Basically calling the center and find out who uses it.
Mm-hmm. Or you could go to the Best Friends, it's Health Professions Press, and I bet that they would probably have a list of facilities that are specialized in this. HPP.
But it's always a good question, no matter what, if you're going to in-care or if you're going to adult daycare, just ask, what training does your staff have?
Mm-hmm.
And don't go with the, oh yeah, we train and we talk all about dementia. Yeah. No, what specifically, you need to get specifics because they're all going to say, oh, of course our staff is all trained and they know all the latest and greatest. You need to know who is it? Is it best friends approach? Is it the positive care to the snow approach? What
Right.
approach do they use? You need to be specific.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to get a bunch of aides that may not quite know what to do
Yeah.
with a dementia care person.
Yes, it's so important because a lot of these places are, it's healthpropress.com. So I would love for every facility to use this, and I don't understand how they don't. But it's not cheap to train someone, and that's probably part of it, unfortunately. But
it's something they can use for advertising to promote. I mean, there's always a positive edge.
Absolutely.
We do have trained
Mhm.
folks.
Yeah.
So don't. You need to get specifics. Don't get rolled over with.
Oh, yeah, that's all we do is dementia here. Well, really? How well? Yeah, exactly. How well do you do it? So.
Anyhow, any more questions for Tracy online or anyhow? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For coming and sharing your knowledge with us.
No problem. There are brochures for best friends back there if you know anyone. I mean, everybody knows someone that's been affected by this stupid disease. So pass the word. There's plenty of opening spots too. So yeah.
And if you want to go back and listen to this, or for folks online that maybe want to share this out with family or something, this will be recorded and will be put on our website probably early next week. Not tomorrow, but early next week sometime. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I love to spread the word as much as I can. Let's see if I can.